They're not saying what he did wasn't wrong. He's still family. We're helping the families because they're the ones in need now. They're the forgotten part of society that no one ever thinks about.
Ordinary people living extraordinary lives, building enduring legacies. Welcome to Philanthropist Friday with your host, Matt Johns.
Today I had a fascinating conversation with Ryan Lyles and Debra McCammon, chairman of the board and executive director of Hospitality House in Huntsville, Texas. The house was established in 1986, just around the corner from the most active execution chamber in the United States. And for good reason. While those in prison are being justly punished, the innocent people who love them, their children, their parents, their spouses, their lives were turned upside down. Hospitality House exists to care for them, the other victims of crime. The house provides a peaceful place where they can visit their loved ones throughout their lives and, notably, on execution days. Both Ryan and Debra have served Hospitality House for many years. Debra started as a donor and volunteer and eventually a board member before taking over as the executive director in 2009. Ryan's been on the board since 2008. He's now retired and serving on multiple nonprofit boards. He spent the majority of his career in C-suite roles building companies. As you can imagine, this is a very sensitive ministry to offer, but a necessary one, and it won't take long to understand why. Welcome to my conversation with Ryan Lyles and Debra McCammon.
You're supposed to answer.
Oh, I am. Yes.
You're the one from Colorado.
I told you not to talk.
No, I told you not to talk.
No,
It's
but,
awesome.
but yeah, oh yeah, Colorado's fantastic, and I know Huntsville's plenty nice too. You got all the gorgeous woods around you, and it's a beautiful
We
place.
do.
But there's a little bit of humidity there, a little bit of heat. It's Texas.
A lot of heat, a lot of humidity.
Then you still got hurricane too.
Oh, yeah. And the hurricane recovery. So,
Oh, did that guys hit you guys up there too?
yes. Yes. So,
Oh man.
I had a lot of damage. We didn't have as much damage as a lot of those around us, but we had enough of our own. But a lot of the other homes around us and businesses were very impacted by it.
Oh gosh, I didn't realize it went up that far into Huntsville.
Oh, yes.
Was it a lot of the trees?
Trees. We had huge, massive trees just uprooted,
wow.
laying all over the roads, and especially within the subdivisions, because we do have so many trees. And these were large oaks for the most part. We had some pine trees down, but most of us had oak trees that were taken down, and they have a lot deeper root system. And just massive old oak trees that were taken down and just laying across the roads and uprooted totally by it. So,
Well, I've seen. Go ahead.
Amy did not make it. Yeah, they didn't ever show up. I need to tell you about that, but not on the air.
What didn't show up?
BAMBI.
Tell me about the program.
So BAMBI is a program. The initials are for Babies and Mothers Bonding Initiative. And this is women who are down in the Houston area. They have a certain house down in that downtown Houston area where they keep up to 12 women and their newborn infants. So if the women are going to be getting out of prison within the next 12 to 18 months, and they pass an interview process and drug testing and all of that, then they will be accepted into the BAMBI program where they will actually be able to keep their babies with them and while they're incarcerated. And so they're able to bond and be there with their infants. So during hurricanes or really bad storms or really any kind of a disaster of any kind, we are under contract with Texas Department of Criminal Justice, and we house the women and their babies. So they evacuate them to Huntsville, to the Hospitality House, and then we provide housing and meals here, and then we help protect them from them not having any power. They're not allowed legally for the babies to go without power and water for an extended period of time. So they try to evacuate them usually before the hurricane, bring them up, have them here. Sometimes it's after, like this time they were supposed to be evacuating them after. We kept them in May. We had 6 wonderful women and 6 beautiful babies that we housed for almost a week in May. And it's a lot of fun having them here. And so they come under guard, of course. So they have their own guards with them. They have usually a bunch of higher officials from TDCJ. They always come and check our security. They leave guards with them, one who patrols and one who sits outside the doors of the bedrooms and is there. all night long. And then they switch out guards throughout the day then. So it's a really interesting process. We've been a part of it, I think maybe 14 years now. And we've housed them several times over those years. Especially if like Hurricane Harvey, we housed them at it, Earl, different times, even just really bad thunderstorms when all those came through in April and May coming through Houston. We had really bad rainstorms here and they lost power down in Houston. So they came up and stayed with us that almost week. And
So if you don't mind me asking, how does this come to be where the state of Texas becomes dependent on you to house inmates?
Interesting. I'm not really sure how I don't know if it's because of us helping with the executions, but I had the head of chaplaincy reached out to me those years ago and asked me if we'd be willing to house them. They came by. I gave them a tour of it. I showed them that our upstairs only has the 2 exits, so it's very easy to guard. We can sleep 20 people up there. There's room for the babies and cribs, guards, and everybody up there. And so we took them through it all, and then they went back to TDCJ, had some kind of a meeting, and then came back to me and asked me if we'd be willing to sign a contract. So I signed a new contract every year with them. They renew it every year, or they come back and ask again, will you be willing to help us next year should we need it? So I usually sign it every fall for the following year in case anything would come up. And so we've just done it for all these years and been available. Some years they haven't needed us because there hasn't been any natural disasters. And so they haven't needed us to do it. Other times they've been very dependent on us.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, I can imagine. So this has been going on since 1986.
yes.
It's been, at least at this point, it's been a long time serving ministry for the state of
Yes.
Texas and the Office of Corrections and really the prison in Huntsville.
Right.
You've
And there's
built up a
actually
tremendous... Go ahead.
There's actually multiple prisons in Huntsville. A lot of people misunderstand that. Is the only reason I'm correcting you. A lot of people think there's only one prison in Huntsville. We actually have 9 in our area within Walker County. So we have 9 prisons here, but we service 17 prisons that are within a 2-hour radius of the ministry. And so it goes far beyond just Walker County because we encompass all the way down south of Houston to Nacogdoches area, Lufkin, all the way over to Navasota, Bryan College Station, and even down to Cleveland area, East Texas, Beaumont, that area. So that 2 hours radius around us, then we have those 17 prisons that we work with families who come in and out, travel, stay here as they go visits. So
Sure.
since we've really picked that up since 2009. Before that, it was only the local prisons that we really house families for, but we've kind of expanded our base since 2009.
Now, I want to ask you about why you, Debra, and you, Ryan, why you were both involved in this ministry. But I'm going to come back to that in just a second, because the last time we talked, you raved about your volunteers. And I loved how you spoke about them. So tell me about their experience. Why are they so engaged? I'd love to hear it from your perspective of their perspective on the ministry you serve.
Well, I think we have so many volunteers because they love being able to give back and they can feel very productive being here. We have very specific tasks. I always ask them, what do you like to do? If they're an organizer, they love to organize like crazy. They're OCD. We put them on organizational areas. If they're big into cleaning, oh my goodness, we'll let them clean. And so we just kind of, as I interview them and talk to them about what their interest is, if they love to cook or bake, bring me casseroles and desserts that I can serve for meals. And so, but they really feel, I think, very fulfilled from what they've told me, because we've had some of my volunteers I've had for all 15 years. And they've stayed with me until health or their husband's health has kept them away from really coming. So we have a really great core group of very faithful, loyal volunteers, but I think they feel very productive in coming. They can see that it has an impact on the ministry. And I think that's really what means probably the most to them, is they can tell they're making a difference.
I'd love to know a little bit more about what you do at Hospitality House. It's been around for a number of years. I'm sure it's been through a number of iterations over that time. But maybe from your clients' eyes, what do they appreciate most about how you serve them?
I think what they tell us they appreciate the most is the warm hospitality. They love being able to come in and not be judged or criticized because of their choices of staying with a husband who's incarcerated or having a son who's incarcerated. We don't ever look down on them or treat them any differently from anyone else. They always say it's a sense of family. When they come here, we have family meals around the table when they come in on those Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. So they eat together, they eat breakfast together around the family tables. And so it's that warmth of being able to sit down and work on a puzzle or tell stories about your kids and your grandkids. And so it's just a real sense of home. Many of them tell us it's their home away from home and that they love coming and being here with us. And so I think that's probably from what they share through their guest comments that we collect when they leave notes behind. Those are the biggest things that they really appreciate about being able to be here.
So tell me a
Right.
bit about more about the clients themselves and their situation.
Right. We do provide a lot of activities for the children as well, our Art Against the Odds. We provide the backpacks of school supplies because most of the families cannot afford school supplies for the children. And yes, a lot of schools provide them nowadays, but they're always black or navy blue backpacks, which singles them out as being the poor kids in the school, which just really puts a target on their back. So we ask churches to donate backpacks that are bright, colorful, camouflage, looks like a boy, looks like a girl, Barbie, Marvel comics or something like that, so that they go to school being very proud of their school supplies, their backpack. It gives them a sense of confidence when they go to school. And so we've seen that really have an incredible effect on the children. We provide our Santa shop for the families. So women always really appreciate that. They can't afford Christmas for the kids. And so they're able to go in and pick up anything they want, put it in a big black trash bag, hide it in the car. And we always tell them, this is not from us. This is, from you. The churches have donated so that you can provide Christmas for your children. And it's always brand new items that they could not afford, but they get to choose. So it's like they're shopping, but they're shopping without money. And so they appreciate that. And so meals, food pantry, we have a Bible study time with them. The Art Against the Odds, where the kids are able to work out their anger, bitterness, frustration at having a father incarcerated, are very meaningful to the kids. They love coming and being here, and they look forward to coming because of those opportunities. So that makes a big difference to the families as well.
But it's a really challenging time for these families, right? Because
Oh,
they're
it's
coming to visit their loved
huge.
ones. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Tell me about those challenges they're dealing with.
Challenges are usually going to be the turmoil and the chaos of one, either trying to travel and come, the expense of trying to travel, trying to afford the gas, taking off work. As I tell a lot of people, the families that we help are not salaried wage earners, they're hourly wage earners. So to come make a visit is a huge sacrifice. When they're working 2 and 3 jobs, these women taking off work to come visit a son, come visit a husband, come visit a father even. It's a hardship for them, that loss of income to be able to come do that. But it's also the way they're treated when they go into the prisons. They're treated as if they're the criminal as well. They're patted down, they're searched. And there's good reasons for that. There have been times that things have been taken into prison. So I understand why they have the rules that they do. But unfortunately, the women feel very much like they're also a criminal. And the children are scared to death when they're searched or patted down or scanned as they go through all of that. So that's a very terrifying time, especially when those brass bars clang behind them and the cell clicks behind them as they go into visitation. The sound is almost deafening. I've been into the prison several times myself. And I will say, even as an older adult, it's very terrifying when they close the bars behind you and they take away your ID card. It is like, okay, am I going to be able to get out of here? And so it is a very confusing, I can only imagine it's so difficult for the children. So it's challenging on a lot of levels, the security level, trying to visit, that hardship of knowing what to say. Guards are there listening to everything. So they constantly feel like they're being spied on or looked at. There again, I understand the reasons for it. I'm just saying it's hard on the families. There's a lot of hurting families that face so many challenges of poverty. They don't have, like I said, the women are working 2 and 3 jobs to support the families. These children are, left at home because there's no one to care for them while mom's working all the jobs. There's just so many things that they go through that they suffer as a family because they have a loved one in prison. So the little bit of, as they call it, a vacation that they can be here where someone is cooking for them, providing for them nice, clean rooms, providing meals. It's air conditioned. Many of them don't have air conditioning, even in their cars. So trying to travel through these summer months when they don't have air conditioning and the heat is as bad as it is a real challenge for them as well. So we just try to help them through that. Sometimes we have gift cards given to us that will give them gas cards and enable them to be able to have gas to get back home. So those are things that sometimes we're able to give and help them out as well with.
I would imagine this takes a real passion for people who are as involved as you both are, to take on this ministry and to be involved on a day-to-day level. Ryan, I'm going to come to you. You have not had a chance to say much of anything so far, but I would love to hear your perspective on why are you involved in this particular ministry? Why? And you've been involved for 20 years now, 20 plus years. So what has driven you to stay involved for so long?
Well, staying involved is because the ministry, the enthusiasm of the leadership of the ministry, and then to hear Debra talk about the impact that this ministry has on families. It's a hard ministry to leave. It's just, you want to be involved with it. We run this ministry with 2.5 full-time people, 2.5 people on a $300,000 budget. And we're ministering to, 3,000 individuals, but not different individuals necessarily, but over the year. It's just, it's so important that these families have this kind of contact and support.
Yes.
And so it's just important that we stay here, that we're here to make sure that happens, that they have a safe place to come. Mm-hmm. They have a place they can rest. They have a place the kids can do something. They have a way to take groceries home when they leave. So it's just very fulfilling from that perspective. It's just, there's a need that needs to be met, and it takes resources to meet it, volunteer resources to meet it. And that's what we're trying to do.
Part of the difficulty of this ministry, though, isn't just the folks who are coming in. It's folks from the outside who have preconceived notions about who prisoners are, and kind of, Debra, as you alluded to, their families. Their families are tied to them by their relation, but not necessarily tied to the action of what led to that person's imprisonment. What is that sentiment like, and how do you handle it when you experience it?
Well, how do I handle the negativity within some of the areas? Yes. I told Ryan, I encounter it a lot when I go speaking, whether I'm in a, Rotary Club or Liles Club, or whether I'm in a church, doesn't matter, civic organization or churches. I encounter negative pushback in that people say, well, they committed a crime, they deserve to be in prison. And I always agree with that. They absolutely do. Mm-hmm. They did the crime, they need to do the time. But the family is the one that we minister to. We don't minister to the inmates, we minister to the families, helping them through these challenging times, helping them through this time of low income by providing the meals, by providing the groceries, all the backpacks, Santa shop, the other things that we're able to give and help them out with. We even provide them, we don't pay for them, but rolls of quarters, because around town, there's so many prisons, so many people visiting in prison, that you can't go to a bank and get a roll of quarters, or go to a grocery store and get a roll of quarters. So we keep them on hand, and we sell them then the roll of quarters, $10 for the roll. And then they can take those 3 rolls of quarters in and be able to go and make visits. We just had a family from France that were here for about 5 days, and they were staying here while they visited her friend. They're not married yet, but they're meeting and talking. And she didn't even realize she needed quarters to go in. And so she said 4 hours visit was so long, and they needed something to drink. The kids wanted food. She had 3 children with her. And so there was such a challenge there. And so when she came back and mentioned that, I said, "Oh, Alicia, we keep quarters on hand for you." Well, then on every day, she was buying 3 rolls of quarters, to take with her into the prison for each one of those days of visit. So the pushback is there, the negativity is there within the groups. But what I share when I go speak is I share the stories of the families, of these hurting families, and I call them by name. Now I give them a fake name, but the story is real. And as I tell that story, then I tell all the impact this incarceration puts on the family, the ways that each family, each child is impacted by what goes on and what happens, the lack of that father, grandfather, the brother, even that's incarcerated. And so I try to explain that to them by telling them the ways we meet the needs of the family, especially the children, because the children are such an important role. Right now, Prison Fellowship in the state of Texas, the statistic is 78% of the children who have one or more parents incarcerated are destined to go to prison themselves, according to the state of Texas. And so one of the things that we want to do is change that statistic. And so we offer so much for the children because we want them to see that they can make better choices than their father did. And I always share that with groups as I speak. Yes, he did the crime. He's got to do the time. And I understand, your family was robbed or burglarized, but this family did not make that choice. He made an adult choice. Another good point of that is I had a lady here by the name of Rosa. She came in and was here for the execution of her son. That whole family was here for 4 days, and they were making visits back and forth. Immediately after the execution, as she came back in the doors of the building, she fell into my arms sobbing, and she looked up and she said, "I know what he did was wrong, but he's still my baby." And that just hit me. And that is the way all the families feel. They still love them. They're not saying what he did wasn't wrong. They're just saying he's still family. He's my husband. He's my child. He's my grandson. He's my brother. And so I know what he did was wrong, but he's still my baby and I still love him. And so that's why we're ministering. We're helping the families that we help is because they're the ones in need now. He's being provided for. The state is taking care of his every need. The families, no one is taking care of their needs. They are the forgotten part of society that no one ever thinks about. And so that is why we're doing what we do, is to really help meet the needs of those families that are hurting, that society wants to forget that they're even there.
Now, you mentioned Rose and her story. She's one of many family members of somebody being executed.
Yes.
And this is, in my humble opinion, this is probably one of the most valuable services that Hospitality House offers, because where else do these folks go? There's no comfort. Nobody, like you said earlier, there's no regard for these individuals being affiliated with people who did these heinous crimes.
Exactly.
So what is that experience? I know you talked about it a little bit with Rosa, but what is that experience like for you, for the volunteers, and especially for the families that come in?
Well, I'll share just for a brief moment, but then I want Ryan to share his experience because he's come and been here several times for the executions.
Yeah.
From my aspect, it's the hardest part of my job. It's the hardest day of my job for that month is to be there with the families because, one, we don't know what to expect. A lot of families come in angry. They're angry at Texas Department of Criminal Justice. They're angry at the world in general because their son or their husband is being executed. So they come in hurting, full of anger and full of grief. And so even attorneys come in and they'll be very threatening, very aggressive. And because they think we're a part of Texas Department of Criminal Justice, we're not. We don't receive any monies or funding from them. And so once I make that very clear, very quickly, we're not a part of TDCJ. We're not a part of any of those that made this decision for your loved one. We're here for you to meet your needs. And so that makes a real difference, to them. And so very quickly then, and we have a hot meal for them and we work with them and visit, play games, do puzzles. But as we do that, we'll see the families start kind of relaxing through that day. Some days, it's an up and down, back and forth. Others, there's a revival going on and prayer time. Others, they're angry and bitter. They're crying, hiding under tables and in corners of bedrooms. I've found them under beds before, crying and very emotional. We've had them throw up all over the living room, and we're running around getting wet rags. So the days can be incredibly challenging for trying to figure out how we can meet their needs, keep everyone calm, everyone kind of, we know it's a hard day, but how can we best help them grieve through that day and be there for them? A lot of times a year later, I'll get a really sweet card from the family thanking us, usually on the anniversary of that execution. We'll get a thank you card for helping them through that time. And I want Ryan to be able to address that.
Yeah,
please, go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, the range of emotion is just as wide as it can be. I mean, but what I find interesting is that they usually have lawyers with them, so there's always this hope still that there's going to be a stay of the execution.
Yeah, because they're filing appeals all day long.
They're constantly on the phone. They're constantly filing appeals. So there's still hope. And so whether they're angry, whether they're sort of adjusted to it, wherever they are in this, there's still hope. And when that hope goes away, when they find out it's not going to be stayed, when they find out it was denied, it's tough because you just haven't dealt with that before as an emotion. They haven't. Mm-hmm. And so you can tell when it happens, it changes a little bit, the mood. Sometimes they leave the house still thinking, because they have to be at the execution chamber at a certain time, still thinking that things could happen. And then subsequent to that, they happen. But I mean, it's a challenge because you just don't know what kind of emotions are going to walk in and be there. You don't know how they're going to react when they find out that either it's been stayed or not stayed. You just have to be, prayerful and mindful that it'll change quickly. And you just want to be there for them, knowing any of those things can happen. So I've seen families come in and they know it's going to happen. They've been talkative. Other families, like Debra describes, have come in and just shut down for 3 hours. And then when something finally happens, or they know it's going to happen, they sort of loosen up a little bit. But they have this 4-hour window. They get here around noon. They have to leave at 5 to go to the chamber. Once the execution occurs, they come back here because this is where the state returns the incarcerated, the effects to the family. So we see them after the execution.
Yeah, and then they're escorted from here to go view the body for one last time before it's taken to the funeral home. So yes, we're here through all of that, for them. Right.
So I mean, it's interesting. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, I think the day of execution is a critical service we do here and love to do and want to do. But the ongoing things that we do for the families is really impactful also. And that's what we like to hear about also. It's a brief moment with some of these families. We've never even met them. Sometimes they've never,
especially for the execution.
They've never even come to the house and stayed. So this would be the first time they've ever even seen the house. So it's sometimes a different group than who comes in on weekends and on visitation days.
Yeah. Well, sometimes there's only a few. I was just going to say, sometimes there's only 2 or 3 here for the execution, or maybe 5 at the most, because he's allowed 5 witnesses. But then other times, we had a recent one in July, well, it was July 28th, and there were 35 family and friends here and attorneys, 5 attorneys, all the way from Philadelphia, who came in for it. So that was a really large one, and he got to stay at the very last second. So it is an emotional roller coaster for the families, like Ryan is describing, because they don't know. There is hope, and the attorneys are following those appeals, but they just kind of stay on this roller coaster ride of ups and downs. Is he going to get it? Is he not? And even go over there, and they're there waiting for the execution sometimes before. We've had it happen as late as 11 p.m. The executions are supposed to take place at 6 p.m., but a lot of times they're waiting on the Supreme Court, and it'll get later and later without them really knowing anything before something is finally decided. It's very
All the
hard.
while, it's more agonizing for everybody at the house, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And this is the unique thing about this is it's a service that nobody else can provide. It has to be an external group, and being a group from a faith family, churches, ministries, it adds a different dimension to it, but it adds a separation too. But you mentioned earlier, you work a couple times, you work closely with the Office of Corrections and the prison chaplains, all these folks. You have a very close relationship with them.
We do.
What is that relationship like?
Well, it's really great for us because we have a really healthy respect for one another. And so they love the ministry. A lot of employees within TDCJ will recommend it. We just had a lady this past weekend that has been coming for 3 years, sleeping in her car at the rest area close to town. So she's been sleeping in her car every month when she comes in. And then finally was in a visit, and one of the guards heard her talking about how she didn't sleep all night. She was terrified. People were coming and going in the rest area. And excuse me. And then one of the guards told her about, why aren't you staying at the hospitality house? She said, what's a hospitality house? And they began to tell her. And so she started coming, came this past weekend, loved it, booked for next month to come back next month. And so, we do have a good relationship. They recommend us. They're very appreciative of everything we do, both for executions, for BAMBI, other services that we provide. We've hosted the wardens and different leadership from different prisons to come and tour the house so that they know what they're telling them about. We house for hospice as well. So if a family's coming in with a dying loved one in the hospital from the prison, then they can stay here. So we've had the medical team in so that they knew and could recommend us. So it's worked out really well. We just have a great relationship with the prison, and I really strive to make sure we keep a healthy relationship.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it's very healthy. Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, when they come and stay on the weekends, that's at the recommendation. They're choosing to come here. For execution and for BAMBI,
yes,
they're asking if they can come. They being the prison administration is asking if they can come here and use the house on day of execution. So it's the chaplains that manage the entire process. We're just a support team at that point,
right,
for what they're doing. For BAMBI, they've asked to use the house, the contract. I don't even know if it's not even a financial contract.
No,
we don't get paid for this. Yeah. It's just an agreement that we'll house for them, and there's no compensation to the house for that.
Right.
So, but they've asked for that. So there's two dynamics here. One is we're providing for the family. We're in charge of that process or run that process. But during day of execution, during BAMBI, the prison is running that, and we're the support team here for that. So, I think that's
So what would happen? Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, I'm done.
Go ahead. What were you saying?
No, I was just saying.
So what would happen?
You're good.
You're good.
What would happen then if Hospitality House did not exist?
Well, we go back to the way it was before we existed. Families were sleeping in the area convenience store parking lots, showering and trying to wash down in the bathrooms of the local stores and convenience stores to get ready for a visit. They were in the rest areas, pulling over on the side of the road, literally parking outside the gates to await the gates to open the next morning. So without the Hospitality House, I really see it going back to families in dire need, but there not being anything here available. On the day of execution, they used to bring the family over to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice Administration building there near the walls where the executions are conducted, just 2 blocks from here. And so the family would be over there and have to wait there, but they were always very angry and resentful. They did not want to be anywhere near TDCJ. And so that was a real hardship. They stayed angry. There was a lot of animosity towards the chaplains, everyone concerned with it. And that's the reason that the prison reached out to us and said, could we bring the families on the day, family and friends on the day of the execution, the witnesses even, can we bring them to the hospitality house? A neutral ground where they could be there. Now, we chose to feed them and take care of them during that time. That's something we chose to do, not something they require us to do. Same thing with BAMBI. We offer them the hospitality where they're available, just kind of loving and taking care of them and being there, helping them in whatever way, especially those days that they allow us to do that.
I do want to ask this. This is one of those nonprofits that we wish we didn't need, but obviously you've laid the case. It's a pretty clear need for it. How do you envision it taking shape over the next 15 years or so?
Well, you want to answer?
I'll try to answer that. I mean, we've had 3 executive directors in the history of the house, and they've all had different personalities on how they ran it, how they had visions, how they, wanted it to look and feel. So part of the answer is it's executive director driven. We want the executive director to be excited and motivated and passionate about what they're doing. More broadly, we want the house to be here for the next 15 years. We want to be in some way available to these families who need assistance, who need a place to stay, who need a friend to just sit and listen to them, who can meet other people like them and develop a relationship with them, and know that they're not the only ones suffering or going through the same this alone. There are other people just like them, so they get to meet with them, exchange ideas. So broadly, we want the house to continue to be here and available. But at some point, a new executive director will come in, and it will look slightly different based on what that person's motivation is, what their passion is, where they feel their compassion needs to be focused. But we like that because that's what keeps the house. I mean, that's what makes the house. It doesn't feel like you're walking into a doctor's office.
Right.
You're walking into your friend's house and sitting down and having a meal around the table and talking about things that are important to you. So that's,
that's really, Ryan brought up a great point I hadn't mentioned, because one of the greatest benefits to these families is the fact that they meet other women just like them, and they bond. They start carpools. They are on Facebook together. They're emailing one another. We got 4 women that text each other every day, checking on each other. How are you doing? How's your job doing? How are the kids doing? And I had one of them the other day tell me she'd talked to one of the other ladies 7 times that day because she was going through a really rough time. So they do bond here, just like you said. They bond, they become friends because they are going through the same thing, and they understand that heartache and that struggle to go through this, through these really challenging times, and so they can be there for one another in a really great way. It's one of the statistics we can't track, but it is one of the biggest benefits and blessings that the house is able to help with, is giving them a place they can do that.
This question is going to be for both of you. When your time serving with Hospitality House is done, what do you hope your legacy is in your time serving there?
Well, I hope mine is that it would be that we loved them and that we offered them the hospitality. It was a place that they could come that was safe, and that we treated them with respect and with courtesy. It's one of the big rules as I talk to all of my volunteers and my interns who come in, is that you will treat them with respect and kindness and with courtesy. And so I hope that I'm remembered for how much we loved on the families, and how much we cared about them and the relationships that we were able to establish and build with them.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
Yeah, I would like to be able to, when I leave, the house is still here. It still has good leadership. It has momentum. It hasn't had as much growth financially as I would like, but
no, we need the money.
But somehow the Lord keeps blessing us.
Yes, He does.
But I'm with the respect thing. I want people to feel like they were dealt with love and respect, and we cared about them because
We really
do
care.
about them.
Yeah. It's all about our care and concern, our love for them.
Well, it's obvious that you guys have a care for the dignity of every person you serve and everybody who comes in. But Debra, Ryan, thank you so much for taking this time with me. Thank you for all you do at Hospitality House and all your service to the state of Texas and those who are the forgotten victims of crime.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Matt.
To him, Matt.
Yes, thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Philanthropist Friday. If you found this valuable, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. This show is brought to you by Honey Hive Capital Partners. Visit us at honeyhivepartners.com to continue your philanthropy journey. This recording represents the views and opinions of its guests and does not reflect the views and opinions of Honey Hive Capital Partners, LLC. Nothing in this recording nor any communications from it should be treated as constituting financial, investment, legal, tax, or other advice of any kind, or as a recommendation to buy or sell an interest with respect to any investment. We look forward to you joining us next time.